Hello, everyone. Welcome to another CEN podcast live. Uh, Today we have a great honor and a great guest, but wait a bit, I'll tell you about her some things. I hope you have a great day. Good morning, good evening, and good night, depending on the time and the time zone you are joining us from. My name is Georgios. I'm CEO of Copyright World, and that's what we do almost twice a week. We bring here in our podcast, the CN podcast, Creator Economy Network podcast. We bring creators, entrepreneurs, businesses from the creator economy universe, and we talk about interesting stuff. So today with us, we have Lana Tannir. I hope I say the name correctly. She's a photographer, but she's a very special photographer. Let me read something from her bio just to give you a little, peek of what we're going to talk about. Lana Tannir is a wildlife, landscape, and nature photographer based in Germany. She's published in National Geographic, Terra Mater, Wildlife Photographic, Oceanographic Magazine. She runs photography tours and workshops, which combine photography techniques, local guidance, and breathtaking travel destination. And besides her creative endeavors, she is currently pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Biodiversity and Ecology. And of course, I have like a million questions to ask. And if you haven't seen her Instagram account, you should, because there are some amazing shots there. So without further ado, Lana is with us right now. So Lana, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me, and thanks for the great introduction.
Sure. I just, said all the things that, not all the things, maybe some of the things that describe you. And if anyone has had the chance, to look at your Instagram, all those breathtaking photographs you have there, he would know. So welcome on our little podcast, little Creator Economy Network podcast. And let's start by giving you some time to introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, you've already done a very good introduction for me, so I think there's very little to add. As you already said, I'm a nature and wildlife photographer. My focus is mostly on nature conservation themes and topics, so trying to highlight some of the issues that are going on, especially with wildlife and nature conservation around the world, working with different NGOs and organizations, as well as the ecotourism industry. And on top of that, I'm currently also pursuing a bachelor in biology and ecology in Germany. So I'm very engaged in these types of scientific topics and trying to just highlight, as you already said, a lot of these the beautiful corners of the world, as well as kind of the problems that are arising currently with climate change, with the different struggles of wildlife, such as wildlife threats and extinction of specific species. So that's kind of my focus, and that's what I'm trying to communicate through my pictures. And I'm specifically attracted to a lot of bird life as well as the Arctic. So I spend a lot of time up in the north in different countries like Norway and Svalbard and Finland, and just try to document as much as I can of, this very fleeting region where climate change is mostly or felt most drastically. And that's pretty much a summary of me.
Pretty amazing. I mean, you are so young and you have done so many things. And the first thing that pops from your bio is this National Geographic feature. I mean, I know a lot of photographers that dream of that, of being featured in such a big publication, and I'm a bit confused. Is that something you're doing professionally, and you're doing the bachelor on the side? Because to be featured on those publications, you have to be pretty good.
I actually started initially with photography and videography, so my bachelor came quite late. It's my second bachelor. I have to mention, I've already done a bachelor in film and TV production when I was
All right.
younger in New York. So the bachelor in science is kind of trying to combine both the visual arts and the scientific side of specifically the topics that I'm documenting. I started to take pictures and to create videos when I was 14, so I've had quite a long kind of track record of using visual arts to communicate stories and different topics. And as with all photographers or many nature photographers, it was my dream as well to be published in large-scale publications such as National Geographic. And it took a while. So it took, a good 10 years to achieve that goal, and a lot of kind of trials and errors and failures until I managed to get a story into the publication. So I had a lot of like micro stories in different National Geographic online portals and websites from different countries, but until it actually got to a large scale publication in a magazine, that took a long process. So people usually see the results, they see you being published, and they think that that's something that happens in an instant and overnight. But there are years and years and years of learning, failing, and trying behind that until you get to that kind of goal. So for me, I work professionally in photography, and on the side, I'm pursuing this bachelor. So it's sort of a part-time bachelor. In Germany, you can take a reduced amount of classes just to kind of be able to pursue other goals. But nevertheless, I'm pretty much constantly engaged either with studying or with working, and it's always a balance. It's always trying to balance the two and to make everything happen at the same time.
Mhm. When is the first time you remember yourself picking up a camera and taking a photo?
I was probably about 12 years old. I remember that back then digital cameras weren't that widely used, so I was still shooting on my parents' film camera with um, very few settings, so I couldn't really make the adjustments myself, and I didn't really understand what those were in the first place. So I started with my parents' kind of film camera, and then at 14, I got a video camera, a digital video camera, as a gift for my birthday, and I started shooting kind of small films with my friends. Also for certain school projects, we had to do some sort of like short movie or a short presentation, so I would start shooting that. And the more I shot, the more I kind of got engaged with visual storytelling, and the more I realized that was the direction that I ultimately want to go into.
Mhm. And what is the first professional gig you remember?
Oh gosh. The first professional gig was when I started studying. So I was in New York and I was studying film and TV production. And I was doing a lot of student films. So student films are where through university, you kind of collaborate with other students to help them with their films. And I got an editing gig. So I was working with an NGO which told stories of cancer patients, not the most, I guess, not the happiest topic, but it was something that I was also interested in already very early in my kind of pursuit of visual storytelling to work with NGOs. And they hired me. I was applying for an internship, but they actually hired me as an editor. So I spent about 2.5 years just editing all of the content that they were producing, all of the videos that they were shooting with cancer patients and interviews that they were doing. So I think that was one of my first gigs. And besides that, I was also working at an acting school as kind of an assistant videographer for acting classes. So I was also kind of shooting camera tests with actors and helping out to kind of stream them in specific scenes and roles, just so that they could evaluate and see how they were doing and to help them improve their camera techniques.
Wow. I mean, that first gig you just described, I guess this would be a life-changing gig. I mean, having to edit all this content from, probably terminal sick people. It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, even if you do it completely professionally, just for, looking at the parts and editing the scenes, you would listen, you would see. How did that affect you?
I mean, there weren't just stories of terminally ill patients, there were also stories of people that overcame cancer. So that was, in a way, it gave me a little bit more hope. But there were also stories, obviously, that were quite sad of people that just, were very ill and they weren't able to be cured anymore. So for me, it was a learning experience. And in a way, I feel like it did prepare me for a lot of these difficult topics that I'm dealing with nowadays. Because the more you get confronted with these types of things, the more you learn to kind of listen and appreciate, but not to let it affect you all too much. Just because if you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, that's not no use to anyone. And it prevents you from telling these types of stories. So for me, it was a learning experience, and it did set me up for, the types of things that I'm working on today.
All right. So those first gigs, kick the professional career for you. And what's next? How do you go from there to a National Geographic publication? What's the short version of the trip?
I mean, there's no really a short version. It was a lot of experimentation, a lot of me pursuing stories by myself, and trying to pitch them to magazines, and then kind of sometimes getting feedback from these magazines to hear what they were looking for, what they would like to be done different, and also finding mentors. So for me,
What's that process? Sorry to interrupt, but this is very important to our listeners. What's that process of pitching to magazines? I mean, do you create like a full story and then you pitch it, and it may go public, it may not, and then you try again and again? What's that process?
I mean, it's hard to summarize just like one single process because every magazine has their own process, and usually you can find their kind of pitching guidelines on their specific websites. So every publication has a slightly different process, and usually the best way to do it is to understand the publication itself. So knowing the type of stories that they're telling, knowing the type of content that they're publishing is kind of the best way to be able to target them and the best way to be able to pitch your own story to specific editorials, because sometimes the mismatch between your story and what they're looking for is just too large for them to be able to pick it up. So I think that's kind of the key way to be able to ultimately reach a magazine or to pitch to a magazine. And obviously following, the type of guidelines that they give you. Sometimes they want an entire story pitch, sometimes they just want like a short summary. Sometimes they want a lot of pictures, sometimes they want just a few to see kind of to get a brief overview. It really varies, so it's very hard to generalize it. But I think the best way to do it is to, those types of publications that you're interested in publishing. Those are the ones that you should be researching, and those are the ones where you should be reading as much as possible into those types of stories that they're publishing, to understand kind of what type of content they're looking for and what their focus is. And a lot of times these magazines also write kind of what their mission is and what their goals are and what type of stories they're telling. So sometimes in the about section, you'll find that type of stuff, and you'll find that type of guidelines for you to be able to understand better what they're looking for.
So it's a process. It's hustling. I mean, you have to do a lot of them to
Yep.
have a hit, and of course you have to be talented. To have to create some good end result, right?
I mean, I think it's not just about like raw talent, it's about working on yourself and learning from your mistakes. So for me, the time when I started to have the most success in publishing in magazines was around the time when I started working with a mentor. So when a mentor was able to give me feedback on my photos, I finally understood where kind of where the issues were lying or what I could have been doing better. Because evaluating pictures by yourself is often quite hard. You're very emotionally attached to them. So having a person who's an onlooker who's had a lot of experience is usually the best way to improve, and the best way to work on your own kind of from your own starting point, to see what you can be doing better and what you can work on and to understand the types of mistakes that you're making.
So what you say is the role of a mentor is super important, and it's something that accelerated the process of you. I mean, being better on what you do. But I guess a mentor would help you with networking and with processes. Maybe is that how that works?
Usually they don't really help you with networking as much, but they do help you understand what you can improve on your own content. So for me, a lot of it was just focusing on specific photography techniques. Like it was minor things, for example, like using a less distracting background to be able to highlight a subject more, how to photograph birds in flight and get them in focus. So it was these kinds of minor things that made a huge difference, because ultimately those are the things that kind of help you to improve one step up, or to just kind of create that more professional looking picture at the end of the day.
Cool. When social media comes into the play, comes into your life, and how did you start? Did you start with Instagram? Because sounds like the obvious thing to do. I mean, Instagram is more photographic friendly platform. Did you start with Instagram? Are you active in other platforms? How did you start there?
I started with Instagram. I was a little bit of, I think, a late participant when it came to social media, because everyone was already very active by the time that I got on Instagram, and a friend convinced me that this was, the platform that I should be posting pictures on and the platform of the future for photographers. So I think I started in 2014, and I actually just started posting pictures from my phone. So just taking pictures on my phone, and I didn't think I would be engaging with it that much, and I didn't think I would be posting any professional content on there. But as I kind of saw the trajectory of where Instagram was going, and the fact that I could engage people with my content and engage with other photographers on there, I kind of took it more seriously, and I started to post more on Instagram and post more professional pictures and more pictures from my travels and from the different, encounters that I had in nature. And Facebook was always kind of another platform that I was on, but that I didn't put as much effort into, because it started to, I guess the focus just started to trend more towards Instagram. So I do have a Facebook page as well and a LinkedIn page, but those are kind of a little bit, I guess, underdeveloped from my end, and I don't post as much on them, but they do serve, I guess, a good purpose in connecting with other people and connecting with other photographers. Specifically, LinkedIn helps me to connect with other photographers on a more professional level, and potentially also with clients. Facebook is good for connecting with NGOs and with organizations. So I guess they all have their own purpose, but so far Instagram has definitely been the largest platform and has allowed me to make, I think, the most connections with people, as well as to build a community that is engaged with my photos and my content.
It makes sense. I mean, to use its platform for the purpose it was developed for. So
Right. Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. Regarding Instagram, I mean, I put a ticker here with your Instagram profile, because I think everyone should see those amazing photos you have on there. And I would like to ask, what's the process of? Because I believe probably the most difficult part is to tell a story through photos, and this storytelling approach is what makes not a good photographer, but a good storyteller, which is what it's all about. I mean, if you come to publications, it's one thing to see, to go through some great amazing photos, and it's another thing to go through them and learn and try and being like you are with the photography in that trip. So what's the approach you take to tell a story through photos?
I mean, for me, it's still a learning process, to be honest, because there's still so much that I need to work on as well. Ask my mentor. But but the approach that I take, or at least from what I've learned so far, is that you need to have a focus in the story. So trying to document everything at once ultimately leads to your story falling apart. There needs to be a specific goal and a specific focus of the story that you want to tell, and then you need to work around that focus to kind of make a list of different images that you should be documenting around that story to help you tell that story. So looking into different components that are going to contribute towards that specific message you want to tell. Let's say I am doing a story about whale watching, which I did in 2019 in Norway. What are the different components of that story that I need to tell? Well, first of all, I need to document kind of what the crew is doing on the ship, how they're preparing to go on this whale watching trip. So having a beginning, having a middle, being at sea, looking for whales, searching for the right spot to kind of, I guess, direct the boat into. That's kind of my middle, and then finally the encounter with the whales, them actually coming up for air, the interactions of the species with each other, the interactions with the boat. That would kind of be like the final part of my story. And then obviously, if I'm doing a story about, conservation, I would have to also document the interaction of these whales with boats, such as fishing vessels, and what kind of the conflicts between the whales and the fishing vessels would be. Collisions, or let's say the fishermen are trying to chase the whales away, something like that. That would also have to be a component of the story. So I need a lot of different components that are kind of focused towards the message I want to tell. And there needs to be, again, a beginning, middle, and end to the story, just like in writing. When you're trying to write an article or an essay, you need to have an introduction, a middle, and an end.
But in practical terms, what does that mean? I mean, do you have a script, a written script do you have a check boxes, that you check? I got this, I got this, I got this. How are you preparing practically?
Well, it all starts with research. So if I want to document a specific topic, I need to know as much as I can about that topic. So I need to research whether that contains scientific publications or actually speaking to people who are working on that particular topic, like scientists or guides, or just people that have previously been engaged in that specific topic in one way or another. That's kind of the first step, trying to get as much information about it as possible and trying to understand what it really is that I'm trying to tell, and what the potential conflicts may be in the story, who the heroes are, who the bad guys are. So doing as much research as I can. And then I make myself a lot of notes in terms of what kind of pictures I should be taking. I have like a little notebook that I always take with me that I can put in my pocket. And as I'm going through this project or assignment, I'll actually take a look at my little notebook, and I'll check off specific images that I've already done, so that I can see like what other components I need to bring into the story itself.
All right. All right. So you go to those trips, you collect the images, and then you post them online. And since we are copyright world, I mean, we create services for creators to protect their copyright and monitor their images online. Um, what's Did you have an incident, people stealing your images or misusing them without your consent?
I mean, I think every creator has had one or two incidents where that's happened, if not more. So I'm no exception in that case.
I mean, do you care, or is it something you would like to avoid?
It honestly depends. For me, if this image is being used to sell something, so for marketing purposes for a product, then I don't necessarily feel very comfortable about someone using it and using my work without asking to sell something, especially if it's not related to the type of work I do. If it's an NGO which has, just taken the image to try to spread a message that's in some way benefiting a specific species, I'll let it go. I would prefer if people asked me beforehand. I'd be happy to give them the images in that case. But that's kind of a situation where I'll just let it go and I'll say, okay, fine, that's okay. But generally, I guess for me, it is important for people to ask for permission. I'm usually quite, open to that. As long as the images are not manipulated, so, some sort of filters are added or a lot of the image is cropped, it kind of takes away from my creator's integrity and from the integrity of the image itself, because I'm trying to tell a specific message and then someone's kind of manipulating that or changing it in some way.
Mhm. Uh, One of the reasons we're doing what we do here in this podcast is to educate creators, because there is a bit education gap for people that creating stuff. And a lot of people believe that if you take an image from somebody and you just mention his name or her name underneath, that's okay. But we have to inform everyone that that's not the case. You have to get permission, or you have to acquire a license. I mean, especially in your case, where you are a professional. I mean, you're making a living out of it, or you are trying to. Uh, it's not okay to take somebody's work and go, and use it in whatever project you have running, just because it's online and it's exposed to the public eye, because you use social media to promote your work, of course, and to make people see what you're doing, what you've done. But that's not copyright free material in any case.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think a lot of people don't understand how much work goes into creating these types of images, just from, as I said, the initial process of researching a location or a specific story to actually going there. A lot of people usually don't have assignments, so they'll end up spending a lot of money to get to a specific destination. They'll spend hours and hours outside just trying to get a shot, lots of times failing and not creating what they initially had in mind, having to extend their trip to actually get a specific photo that they're looking for, and then coming home and spending hours in front of the computer sorting through the content and then editing it. So it's not just the time that you're investing into creating the shot, but also I feel like the knowledge that you're gaining throughout all of the years of experience that are put into this specific image.
Of
So
course.
in that case, in that sense, I think a lot of that gets lost when people just see a beautiful picture. They don't really understand the whole process that goes into it. And that makes it easier, I think, to just take content from someone and repost it without really understanding kind of how much it means to the creator and, the emotional attachment that they have and the amount of work that they've invested into this image.
Of course, of course. Let's talk about the business side of things. I mean, you are a professional photographer. You try to make a living out of it. How does that work in your world? I mean, do you do work for hire? Do you do work that you sell after you've done the trip? Do you pre-book what you are going to do? I mean, are you paid beforehand and then you go on a trip and bring back the images? How does that work?
Usually it's the other way around that so I'll start from the beginning. There's a lot of components to working as a professional photographer nowadays. It's not just a single direction that you need to take. So for me, it's a combination of doing workshops and personal coaching for people in photography, doing photography trips with usually with a partner photographer to bring a small group to a specific country and then do workshops there. Then it's selling to magazines and editorials. And then lastly, it's also, well, not lastly, but also print sales to specific clients. And then also, lastly, it's working on jobs that I get assigned for. So usually those tend to be ecotourism jobs, or also, well, generally ecotourism jobs where I'm either working for an eco hotel and documenting kind of their work, or I'm going on a tour with, say, a whale watching company and creating videos and content for them, or going up to Svalbard and doing a snowmobile tour and documenting kind of how that works and what that looks like. So there's a lot of components that go into being a professional photographer and getting paid for your work. It's not just one thing that allows you to live carefree and make enough of an income to be able to sustain yourself. So I think a lot of different photographers will tell you that the majority of them have a lot of different kind of micro businesses that they're doing for their photography.
And that's the case for most creators these days. But the good thing about the era that we're living in is that with all this technology and all this networking that can happen online, we've seen a booming in the creator economy as a whole. I mean, the creator economy alone is projected to be more than 100 billion this year. So it's a great industry that has been has been developed in the last 2 or 3 years. But as you said, you can do some micro businesses on the side, but they are connected to your main craft, your main creativity. Let's talk about more about those trips you are arranging for. You take other photographers and you arrange a trip to a country, and you teach them. You make some tutorials on spot. How does that work?
It's a combination. So usually the way that I do my workshops, I have local workshops in Germany. Those are 1 to 2 day workshops where we do a combination of theory and then also practical sessions outdoors, whether it's landscape photography or wildlife photography. I offer, 2 different topics that photographers can pick. And then there's, as I said, the longer photography trips where I usually work with a partner photographer. So we bring practically both of our experiences into this workshop, and people can learn from both of us because every photographer has their own techniques, has their own kind of ways of working. So it's kind of, well, the idea behind it is that the people that come on tour with us profit from both of our experiences and knowledge. And the way that works is that we have theoretical sessions, usually in the hotel where we're staying. And then we also go out on different tours where people can take photos, and then we'll give them feedback and guide them kind of through the process as we're outdoors. And ultimately, the whole idea is also that we can have photography feedback sessions at the end of the day. So everyone kind of gets to learn what they can improve, what they can do differently. And we're kind of there just guiding them through this whole process. And ultimately, it's also a nice way to meet other people interested in the same kind of topics, perhaps also in the same region as oneself, and to learn from other group members too. So it's not just us teaching, it's seeing what other group members are doing and how they're creating their pictures and learning from each other.
Sounds like a great experience. And is it expensive if someone wants to join you? How's the pricing going there?
It varies greatly because if I'm doing local photography workshops, obviously it's, somewhere close by, so we're not traveling very far. Usually it's people that live either in the vicinity of Munich or, in Austria on the border between Germany and Austria that can easily come over and do a workshop. So those are usually in a lower price range because we're not doing as much extensive traveling. If we're traveling into a distant region, such as Svalbard, which is a workshop I'm planning with another photographer currently for June 2022, then obviously that price is higher. And the reason for that is that we're not only organizing our own workshop, we're organizing tours with guides that are professional, that ensure the security of all group members. We're organizing very specialized sightseeing. So we're taking a boat out to go and try to find polar bears, to see glaciers. So having that kind of immersive experience in the country and getting to a pretty distant region, and a region that is quite isolated from the rest of the world, means that you also have a limited amount of accommodation that you can access. So obviously the prices are going to be a little bit higher. And also, whereas my workshops in Germany, as I said, are 1 to 2 days, this will be a 9-day workshop. So clearly you're staying in a country for a longer amount of time, which means you are learning more, but the price is also a little bit on the higher margin.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What's the ballpark, just to get an idea?
So if you want to do a workshop in Germany with me, so as I said, this is like a 1 to 2 day workshop. Usually the cost for that is around 150 euros for this workshop. And then
Very
if you're going to
reasonable.
Svalbard, then for this 9-day workshop, all inclusive, without the flights, we're charging about 3,600 euros for that.
Okay, it's
So
very,
as I said,
it's
it's a
reasonable.
large range.
I see the range, but it's a very different experience. I mean, you go 9 days to a different country. You have all these events arranged, security. You learn stuff. I mean, it's a great investment in yourself. So you can put a price on that,
Yeah,
can you?
and I mean, it's actually also, I think, more useful than just doing a digital workshop, which is what a lot of people are offering nowadays, because when you're doing a digital workshop, you have to go out alone and take all these pictures, and then no one's there to evaluate them and to tell you whether they're good or not or what you can improve. Whereas when you're on site for numerous days with a photographer or even 2 photographers, you get a lot of feedback and you get a lot of guidance. So for me, I've done, photography workshops with other photographers too, just to learn from them. And those are usually, besides having a mentor, those are usually the best ways to expedite your learning process, because you're getting all this information within a very restricted amount of time, which is the best way, I think, to kind of launch that progress or launch your improvement in photography.
Great. So let's assume that I'm a new photographer, or I'm someone who wants to start, with photography. But I'm lost. I don't know how to begin. What should I do?
You mean in terms of what you should do by yourself, or
Yeah, I
just
mean,
generally?
I want to start taking some photos. Okay, I will buy a camera, of course. And how do I learn? Is it a process? I mean, just start taking photos, or do I have to attend a tutorial first and then learn some stuff and then apply that to, or is it like a loop that I have to follow?
It really, so I think the first question I would ask if you were a beginner photographer is, how serious do you want to get? That's the first question, because if you're trying to pursue photography just as a hobby and just take vacation photos, then I would just say it's enough to watch a couple of YouTube tutorials just to understand the basics and to understand kind of how the camera works from a very generalized point of view. If you're looking to go more serious into photography, I would say to do the same process, initially watch a couple of videos to understand the basics, but then also start taking courses with photographers to learn from them and to see how they work and to get into specific topics a little bit more intensely and on a deeper level. So for me, on my workshops, I usually focus on both the technical and the creative aspect of photography, which is something that people are not often focused on. Or are lacking this creative component. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say you need to get deeper into kind of specific photography topics to understand how to improve. So initially, when you buy the camera, I would take a couple of YouTube courses. I'd go out, I'd try to, apply those, and I'd try to kind of learn the basics of how to use the camera in the first place, and then start taking workshops. And for some people, a couple of workshops are enough. For others, they would then like to go ahead and find a mentor and get personalized feedback or get personal coaching. So it really depends on how serious you want to get and whether you would like to eventually kind of transition into this professional sphere or stay in the hobbyist/amateur photography sphere.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Something it just came into my mind on these courses you're doing, the coaching. Are you dealing with the business side of photography as well?
We don't do that as much just because time frame to be able to do everything is too limited. Most people who join our workshops are also more focused. And when I say join ours, I'm usually talking about myself and another photographer. They're usually more focused on creating content for their portfolios or trying to improve specific photography techniques. So we don't do as much of the business side. But what I am developing at the moment is actually also a course which I'm planning on doing digitally, not just as an online course, but a live digital course, to teach people a little bit more about specifically how to publish in magazines or how to find business partners or how to get a gig. So those are a lot of the questions that I get. One of the most frequent one is, how did you get published in National Geographic?
Yeah,
And
makes sense.
and from that standpoint, I think it would be very valuable for people to have a process of how to, approach different magazines or also approach editorials, create a story. So that's kind of in the planning for this year
I,
as well.
I can see that working marvelously. I mean, it's super important, and it's something that photographers always ask. Because okay, if a photographer can take a picture according to his abilities and to his skills, but the other side of the things, the not very how can I say, glorified, side. The dark side of the things is the business side, and sometimes people need some spotlight on it because they don't know how to get around. All right, 3 questions for the end. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book.
Yeah,
Ooh, I would have to go into the trilogy The Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. Do you know it?
yeah, I've heard it. I haven't touched it.
So as a child, that initially inspired me to go out and see the Northern Lights. So I was dreaming about going out to the north to see the Northern Lights because Philip Pullman and his trilogy was, the whole book was taking part in the Arctic. And he talked about the Arctic landscapes and about polar bears and the auroras that were kind of dancing in the sky. So that initially was kind of the trigger for me to even want to go up to the Arctic and to experience it. So even as a child, it just kind of had such a huge effect on me.
Amazing, amazing. How much the books we read, as children, affects us and creates our dream sometimes. All right, question number 2. Who do you follow, and except your mentor? I mean,
You mean photographers or generally
uh,
artists?
yeah, generally. I mean, what's the go-to place on Instagram for you? Where do you go to get inspired? Probably.
I follow a lot of organizations, so NGOs online, and a lot of female photographers. So I got into a program called Girls Who Click this year, which is a mentorship program for female photographers who want to get into conservation photography. And some of the photographers that are mentoring or that are part of this group are photographers I've been following for a long time. So people like Susie Esterhaz or Jamie Heimbuch, Christina Mittermeier. She's not part of the program, but she's a photographer that I follow. Jen Guyton. So Brittany Crossman. There are so many female photographers that I'm inspired by who are also kind of focused on nature conservation or portraying different wildlife and landscape topics. So I follow a lot of them
Cool.
on Instagram.
Cool. Now imagine I have this microphone here, but it's a bigger one. That if you talk to it, uh, everyone in the world will listen, whatever you
Okay.
say. What do you say?
Ooh, that's uh, that's that's tough. Um, can I say anything, or
Yeah.
does it have to be photography
No,
related?
no, anything, anything.
Let's see. I would say that nowadays, I think the world needs a lot more community and a lot more of working together and supporting each other um, in succeeding mutually, so not just individually. So whether it's photography or some other businesses or some other ventures that you're taking on, working with other people is important, and the power of community can make a huge change in the world, not just in terms of some of the issues that we're facing nowadays, such as climate change, but also in different species lives and different human lives. And I would, I guess, encourage people to care about each other and show kindness, and also work together more rather than, I guess, trying to be lone wolves and taking individual paths.
Wow, great message. You used that microphone pretty well. So, if anyone is interested to find you, where can we reach you? Where can we see those courses, those coaching you're offering? How can we get in touch with you?
So my primary channel, as we said before, is Instagram, which is Lana Tannir Photo.
Yep.
Then there's also my website, which is lana-tannir.com, where you can see all of my workshop offerings and a lot of the types of pictures that I take and some of the projects. And then I also have my Facebook page or LinkedIn, which both go under Lana Tannir Photography, where you can find out a little bit more information and also get in touch.
Amazing. So, and for everyone who wants to never miss an episode of CN, anyone can go to copyrightsworld.com/CN. They can subscribe to our podcast. They can subscribe to our YouTube channel, because this comes out as an audio, as a video, and maybe as a photography session. I don't know, as a storytelling process. So, Lana, thank you so much for being here with us, for taking the time. And everyone go and follow Lana on Instagram, because her Instagram profile is out of this world. It's amazing. I love all your photos.
Thank you so much for having me and for inviting me and for this wonderful podcast. I really hope that people are going to follow your future podcasts as well, and all of the valuable interviews that you're providing for the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.